And now, Mr. Heron.
It's a great question. I have an equal serious question.
Sorry, I've just lost the feed. Sorry, I've just lost the feed.
Because
I can't hear it. Right. What do you want, Ken?
Well, I believe we have a friend across the pond who is hanging out and waiting to talk to us. Sean, and he's good looking on camera. He's really good looking in person. I will tell you that. He met up with me in the town of Bath, which is in England. We were there for a family trip, and we took a bath together in a pub, and it was awesome. Sean, thanks for joining us today. Wish you could be here in person. How are you today?
Good, thank you. I'm excited about this. I'm actually a little bit nervous. I have to admit the fact that I'm talking a bit about myself and Geeksvana today, but also, normally when we're streaming out to, yes, sometimes hundreds of people, but those people can leave and they're not all huddled in a room where they can start heckling me together as well.
Right. All right. Well, so Sean, you have been a part of this community for a few years now. I know Geeksvana is actually, I got to tell you guys a quick story. I actually had a call the other day. Who's heard of Tom Scott? Anybody heard of Tom Scott? I had a call with Tom Scott the other day. He's a YouTuber, and he's in the UK. You've heard of him, right, Sean? And we were talking about drones, and I said, the guy you need to talk to in the UK if you want to know anything about drones and what to do is Geeksvana. And he was very receptive to our conversation. He's
thank you very much.
Yeah, he's coming over to the U.S. and we might actually, Chris and I might have an opportunity to work with him on a shoot he's doing over here. So kind of exciting. If you don't know who he is, he's an English guy who does really smart videos about history, science, technology, and he's got
gets about a million views in about 6 hours, doesn't he? Normally, his videos are normally really very, very popular.
Yes. Well, you're the next Tim, only better looking.
Both of those things are lies.
No. They're to build up the ego. So how you want to just take it away? I know you've put together a presentation. You said you would push your own slides and all that good stuff.
No problem.
If you want to take it away, Sean, please do. And then if there are points where you want to ask or you want to let people ask a question, just pause for a second, and then we'll give the mic to whoever wants to ask the question. So if there's pauses,
and exactly, and please do ask questions as and when. Don't the idea is this isn't supposed to just be like a live stream, one of my normal live streams. This is supposed to be like an interactive chat. I've also got my channel members that we're broadcasting this to live as well. But it's great to see you all. I can see lots of faces that I do actually recognise, including some like Ken Heron that I don't want to recognise. So it's great to see you all. I hope you're all having an excellent SpinUp so far. As Kelly was saying, I did want to be there in person, but unfortunately I was also supposed to go to Minefield as well. But the writer's strike stopped me, unfortunately, because both trips were around when I had work trips due in the States. So I was just going to do a bit of hopping around, but without my company paying the bill and without my writing side of things paying the bill, unfortunately, I couldn't make it. So, which is a bit of a shame. But that's all over now, so hopefully I should be able to come over and make some of the shows in person next year. So I'm really excited about that. Looking forward to it. So today we're going to talk about two areas. Firstly, I'm going to give you a snapshot into the behind the scenes of Geeksvana and talk a little bit about how the channel started, how some of the things that make us a little bit different in the drone space, basically. I know there's others that are going to be talking about YouTube today as well. And I know there's a lot of people who attend SpinUp that are creators themselves and that type of thing. I don't often talk about myself on air. I don't often talk about that kind of thing. So I've kept it fairly short. And a fairly abridged version, frankly. Then we're going to look at some of the drone regs and actually compare how they differ between the US and the UK. And then perhaps with you guys in the room, make some predictions on things where we think things might go, basically. And as I say, we want to interact on this, so please do. If you've got a question at any point, please do raise your hand or just shout out or say shut up and that kind of thing, basically. So first up, and talking about how I got started in YouTube, it was about 4 years ago. Previous to actually running a channel, I was just a bit of a drone geek and I enjoyed a lot of content from other creators. Ken Heron and Thursday Night Live was a particular favorite of mine, which kind of that was the first time that I was watching content that just took me beyond watching a how to do 10 things with your, Mavic Pro and that type of thing, the sort of how-to videos. And Ken's was really the first sort of entertaining type content in the drone space that I watched. And I enjoyed that an awful lot and became a self-confessed super fan of Thursday Night Live. And I had a lot of free time from my writing job, which is what I do during the day. So I decided, as that work comes in waves, basically, as projects. So I wanted to try and have a little bit of fun with YouTube, which I started as a hobby project. It actually started off from one of my bedrooms, as it does for so many of us. And it was actually a triple built-in wardrobe. I've got one of my old videos here, which I'm going to play in the background while I'm talking. But this was actually using a hollowed out triple wardrobe in my home, where we actually just lowered the shelf from there. So that's actually literally just a little hollowed out alcove in my house. And we used a DJI Action Cam, the first action camera, to literally record all of my videos, probably in about the first year of the channel. So it was interesting. Now, I used to get a lot of comments from people, because you can see I've got my hand right up in the air for some weird reason. And I had one comment, which I will always remember in my early videos, where they said, if you watch it muted with Sean with his hands in the air, it looks like he's been held up at gunpoint and is pleading for his life, which is... It's interesting what kind of takes people actually take away from things, but yeah, and look at how much grayer my hair is in just a few short years, which is but there we go. But I really then started to carry on evolving things, and I had had a little rule that I would try and improve the production value and improve something on the channel every week. Sometimes that was every month, depending on how things were going, how much time I had to spend, and the amount of time I spent on the channel did go up and down a little bit. Once things became a little bit more serious, we found ourselves covering a lot more of the regulation side of things and the news and the updates. So again, rather than, I try to look at it from the point of view that, there's lots of great creators out there telling you how to use these drones or showing you wonderful footage from them and that type of thing. What can I do that's bringing something different to the drone space? So that was really focusing on the news side of things. Obviously, as a writer as well, I felt like I had the skills that I was sort of best suited to it. My brain also took me down a rabbit hole that I never returned from, where I wanted to know more and more about the detail of the regulations, and mainly in the UK and USA, but to some extent the EU as well. I did fairly at that kind of stage. I had a video on my channel where we covered a story, and I don't know if everybody remembers this, but there was a big issue about 3 years ago where people were seeing swarms of drones across Nebraska at night, and they thought, there was something going on, whether it was the Chinese or whether it was, it was a fairly big story in the main media as well. And we actually managed to capture a good couple of interviews on that. And I was slightly concerned about some of the aspects of my own reports and of the videos and that type of things. So we wanted to try and ensure that we could cover ourselves and also protect the people and the stories that we're working on. So I decided to register as a journalist with the National Union of Journalism here in the UK, and they have a set of ethics that I now and then decided to work by as well if you join them. But it means I get a little press card, so when I turn up at locations and the police want to move me on, I can identify myself as a member of the press and that type of thing. And that did actually open a lot of doors for me. The fact that we did have a fairly professional approach in that sense meant we were able to gain interviews and work in collaboration with all sorts of people, including the UK CAA, the National Police, and even more recently in interviews with the FAA, which in fact we've got another one coming up very shortly on that. I'm also now on a national advisory board, which provides advice to the police at a national level about how drone rules are enforced, because here in the UK, the CAA defer enforcement to the police, basically. So it's actually the police that enforce it. So whereas obviously I know in the States, people often say the FAA don't have a police force. They don't have lots of little guys running around enforcing. Literally, if you go onto the CAA's website here in the UK, it says if you've got a problem with a drone, call the police, call 101 to speak to the police. So as things moved on, somewhat unexpectedly, and this is a little snapshot of our website. We happened across the opportunities to start running a business alongside the channel, and we started gaining clients on the video production side of things, as well as actually on the drone services side of things as well. And so we started that. It's developed itself into a relatively successful, for what's supposed to be a side gig, a relatively successful business. But it means that actually now that pays for the channel. So it means that we don't have any sponsorships. We used to have drone training companies and different companies that were sponsoring who would pay us a monthly amount. And then we'd plug their things every live stream and that type of thing. So the fact that the production company is doing so well, we've decided to allow that to pay for the channel. So we're completely independent of sponsors and that type of thing, and it does mean that we're not impacted, we're not affected by any of that, because although we did choose what I felt were some good sponsors, there was still people that you couldn't mention, or they wouldn't like you to speak about certain stories, and if we were being a little bit controversial, sometimes they wouldn't be particularly happy with that. So yeah, it's kept us independent, which I'm very pleased about, and I have to say I'm actually quite proud of as well. We currently operate from 2 locations. We've got one large sort of, I would call it blank space, which is almost exclusively for client work, where one side of it is set up as a green screen, and it means it's modular, so we can set up as and to suit the client's needs. And then we have the studio space, which I just took a very quick clip this morning of. You have to excuse the dodgy camera work. Of the space we're in now, where we just have like a little kitchenette, a communal area, and we share this floor of the building with another company, and then we have a couple of studios towards the back. One which is this studio I'm in now, which is Studio 2, which is our Studio 1 rather, which is our live studio. And the Studio 2 is the other space. This I absolutely adore. This is probably my favorite part of our studio, which is actually our storage. Just actually having somewhere to put everything these days is incredible, because we are off out and about with clients an awful lot these days. So we do have an awful lot of kit that we don't use on a day-to-day basis. So it's nice from that point of view as well. Yeah, that's the studio I'm sat in right now. So I probably need to send you that clip, because you can see it behind me. Of all of our services on the production side, live streaming is probably one of our most popular and successful services. We live stream for clients across the UK. It might be streaming company meetings to large workforces internationally, or events to YouTube and things. An example here, this is a trailer from an event that we live streamed out for RPAS UK, who are the national trade body here in the UK. So commercial operators will join this company to get benefits, but also for this company to act on their behalf to people like the CAA. And we actually, we live streamed this event out and recorded it for them to be able to produce it on their YouTube channel. Yeah, it was an interesting and exciting day. There was lots of Q&A and everything else like that. Obviously, lots of stress from the point of view of bringing people together, both from inside the room, but also bringing people in remotely, etc., and needing to produce it at a decent quality, and obviously having that extra stress that it's the national regulator that are there as well, which is always fun. So we do actually have a live stream mobile setup now. Some of the equipment you would have seen on the shelving there, but we also have things like Starlink to back that up. So we're able to basically bring the internet to wherever we go. We have live streamed from the middle of fields and that type of thing before, which is exciting as well. And we've actually found that, I think, because obviously I'm a known YouTuber and a journalist within the drone industry, within the drone space, that a lot of our clients are actually drone industry people. So we do tend to obviously gain a lot of clients who are themselves, as I say, in the drone industry. I think that's mainly because we understand the industry and therefore their target audience as well. Another project, which I'll play the trailer to here, which was a project called Fire Drone. And this was basically on behalf of Southampton University for an EU-funded project. There was a very large fire which happened across in France, which was an industrial site. And they needed to invent something to, or innovate something which could basically tell them whether or not there's harmful smoke. Because when that happened, because they couldn't tell, they had to evacuate a very, very large part of the north of France because the large clouds were coming across it. And the fire drone team actually produced a sensor-driven drone, which is that drone, that big tube on the ground there, which was then able to actually basically tell if there's harmful particles and what level the particles are, so that you're able to tell how far out you need to do that. So for this client, we basically, as you can see, all of the footage here is created, recorded by Geeksvana, and we recorded their trial days and turned those into videos, as well as live streaming presentations, interviews, etc., to what was an international audience, including the EU officials that had paid for it, etc., and that type of thing. Wanted to see at the end of a lot of these kinds of presentations, they do need to show the work that they've done, basically. And as you can see here, the type of testing that they did was literally light fires and then fly the drone in different zones. This was at the Royal Fire College in the UK. To be able to find out exactly how close it can get. Now, that box on the bottom of the drone, that is the very basic, as you can see, duct taped onto the drone there, the very basic sensor. But the idea behind this project was that once they'd created the sensors, which they have now, they actually open sourced that. So any company can now take that technology and take the research to create products, basically. So the idea was the EU wanted to solve the problem, but then obviously have other companies innovate around it, basically. So, but they built an entirely new drone to be able to withstand the temperatures and that type of thing. So it was a really interesting project to get involved in. And as I say, we do tend to get quite a lot of those. We've actually just started working with a company who are a drone delivery company, and we're helping them with their packaging. Which is a very interesting and the marketing of that. They are a drone delivery packaging company, basically. So yes, we're helping them with that. So that's really taken off for us on the side of the production side of things. It does take us away from the channel sometimes a little bit as well, but it kind of enriches our contacts in terms of the journalism side of things, which is quite exciting. And I do hope to grow the channel itself, and I would love to see hundreds of thousands of subscribers. So if anyone in the room isn't subscribed, please go and subscribe.
Anybody subscribe to Geeksvana in here? All right, yeah.
But it's also important that we grow it as a community. I've really always wanted to grow it organically as a community, and hence I've got all my wonderful, a lot of my wonderful channel members watching right now and commenting on the live stream that we're putting out, including Ken Heron, who's just given me a $50 super chat.
Oh, look at that!
Heron, I really appreciate that. Who is one of my channel members? There you go.
You're gonna play the train music?
Yeah, no, we will not be starting a super chat train. If everybody could just get out your wallets and start throwing money towards the screen.
Just throw it towards the screen. That's great. You do that.
Works, doesn't it, basically, yeah.
Dollar bills, please.
Yeah. Kelly promises to pass it on to me.
Can I ask a couple of questions, Sean, and then see if there's some from the audience?
No problem.
I knew you were a journalist, but I didn't know you recently got your journalism certificate or license
we did that
credentials.
About 2.5 years ago. Yeah.
Well, yeah, recently, as in later in life, right? You weren't a journalist right out of school. It's a recent
absolutely.
thing in your career. Is that? I'm thinking about getting my dog certified as a comfort animal so I can take it on planes, and getting my press certificate so I can go wherever I want. Is that the case? Can you walk in the back and just flash your press badge? How does that work?
I think that I think it is a thing in the States because Pilot Institute, Greg and his team, they had a post about having press passes before, but I don't think it's necessarily here in the UK. If you have an NUJ press pass, it's recognised by people like the police and government and that type of thing. So it doesn't necessarily get you in anywhere, but if you turn up and you've got the press pass around your neck, they know that you've gone through a level, because it's not only registering. You have to be doing a certain amount of your work has to be in journalism, and you have to go through more, credential checks and checkups and that type of thing, basically. So it's another few steps beyond just registering and that type of thing. So
it's something that they recognize.
It opens doors as well from the point of view that even with the FAA, when I told them I was registered press, it kind of clicks a little button inside their head to say, okay, this guy is working to a level of ethics. So
yes.
he's not going to put something out on air that we don't want to be out on air and embarrass us or that type of thing. And so it helps to open doors from that point of view. And it means that we are, as I say, we are working to ethics, because we actually had a story which was the Microdrone 4.0 story, which really drove home that I needed this. And the chap who's running that, who has stolen millions of dollars from people claiming to sell them drones, I found out a lot more information, and I was sort of like, what do I do with this information? Can I use it? Can I put that out there? Is it ethical? And the NUJ, the professional side of the journalism, I was able to pick up the phone and speak to someone. They have an ethics hotline, believe it or not, and actually chat through with them what I should do and what I could do. And it really does help. It's a really good backup, basically.
So yeah, no, interesting take, because as a Part 107 drone pilot, you get hired to do something. If you had a press pass as well, or press credentials as well, I imagine that would give you that much more credibility with, you're not just some guy trying to get shots of the storm or the flood or whatever. Does anybody have any
during
questions?
COVID, actually, it's interesting from that point of view, because during COVID, I was able to go out, even under complete lockdown. I was still able to go out and fly my drone and get shots of the empty streets, etc., because I had a press pass.
Right. So you're downtown
pass,
London,
legally,
or you're someplace where there's no people, and they're like, "What are you doing out here?" I'm actually shooting for the press.
Able to flash the card, basically.
Yeah. Any questions for Sean?
All right, so I'm going to ask you this from a perspective not only as a pilot but also from a journalist, because
is that Jeff Sills?
Yes, sir.
Man, that beard's impressive.
You can see it all the way from there. Huh?
Yeah, I think you see it from space.
So, in the past several years, we have watched the thing that we love the most get turned into weapons and used in conflicts throughout the globe. We saw them in Iraq, we saw them in Afghanistan, we saw them in Ukraine. We're now starting to see them in the Israeli thing. What do you feel is the future for this hobby when people now start having that stigmatism of, or the stigmata of our drones being weaponized?
Yeah. There is a massive change coming from that side of things, and it is a huge concern. On the national body, the National Advisory Group that I'm a member of, which I mentioned before, it gets mentioned there, it gets talked about, and it's starting to seep into the sort of governmental side of things. And I think it is a concern, because it's a concern that we're seeing consumer drones and FPV drones used in that way. The thing we need to try and emphasize is, of course, just having the drone doesn't help you. I don't know about anybody there, but I personally can't go down my corner store and buy grenades or anything. So we need to try and keep their feet on the floor in terms of the governmental concerns that anything can happen with drones like that. But it is probably one of the at the moment hidden dangers to the hobby and our freedoms to use drones, certainly.
Good question. And now Mr. Heron.
It's a great question. I have an equal serious question.
I've just lost the feed. Sorry, I've just lost the feed.
Because
right. What do you want, Ken?
Sean, why do you fill your cars up with 5 liters of fuel to go 60 miles an hour?
Because we and then on our motorways, which is our freeways, we then our signs say it's 50 miles to London, but then you'll come up to the junction and it's 300 yards to the junction. 200 yards to the 100 yards.
I think you made a video about that. One of you guys did. And it was one of the most entertaining. Yes, it
is everywhere in the UK, and it's a very strange thing. But
I think you talked about selective units of measurement for different things.
Yeah,
different body parts, whatever.
That's right, exactly.
Millimeters. All right. Any other questions for Sean?
Are you talking about my small penis? You've been very polite about the fact that we talked about my small penis. I think you are right.
Sean, there's one lady in the room, so please stop. All right, hold on. Mike's got a question.
Hey, Sean.
How are you?
Good to see you. I just watched your video recently and you interviewed the gentleman from the CAA, and he was talking about how with remote ID, they don't think that pilot location is necessary, and they're probably not going to do it. Here in the United States, we can't believe anything the FAA says.
Yeah.
You know, they with all steps that led up to remote ID, everything that came out from them was just BS. Do you believe the CAA?
I think I do, only from the point of view that I also get that feedback from the National Police, and they're the ones with the sort of the security ticket, as it were. And you know, there are other stakeholders as well that are saying that. Generally, here in the UK, unless the government gives them an absolute instruction to do something a different way, the CAA will tell you nothing rather than tell you something, unless they know that that's the direction they're going in. So the fact that Mark, he's senior within the team, he is actually one of the policymakers, and I think that's one of the differences as well, is we don't have media people in the CAA here in the UK that come on like sort of Kevin Morris and that type of thing, who are given information from others. Mark is actually a senior member of the policy team, and so you know, he's one of the people making the decisions. So I think from that point of view, it has more credibility, and but you know, again, it's all down to the fact that obviously our CAA, the same as your FAA, it's there to do the government's work. And if the government were to suddenly turn around and say, no, we need pilot location, then who knows? Pilot location will be a thing. It will be available, but it will only be available. It will be locked on our apps. It won't show the pilot location to the public and things. You'll have to be a signed in law enforcement officer, which I think one of the apps in the States is actually doing that. But yeah.
Good evening to you.
Hey, Steve.
How are you doing?
I'm
Thank
good,
you for coming on. Good question.
Thank you for watching here and watching in my and chatting in my live stream as well. I appreciate it.
Give you some extra watch time.
Thank you, sir.
It was actually more or less a follow-up to that with remote ID. And I remember back, you had several videos out and you had people on regarding commercial, more or less flight channels that they were going to try to do as a corridor for flying.
Yes.
And they were trying to do that. With the remote ID being off, how do you think they're going to be able to accomplish that, separating the hobbyist from commercial?
Well, that's a project called Project Skyway, and it's really interesting because it kind of flies in the face of a lot of what other companies want to do, like Google and others. So essentially what they're doing is they have some superhighway corridors in the UK. I mean, it can happen. It doesn't have to be corridors with this technology, but the technology watches everything in the air within that zone, and it actually the aircraft that have the tech and the avoid tech, etc., are the commercial drones. So I could go and fly my Mini 3 in one of those corridors, and I don't have to tell anybody. I don't have to do anything differently. The radar picks up the fact that I'm flying there, and it tells the commercial delivery drone to go round me, basically. So it's under trial here in the UK, and if it works, obviously it will be hugely popular because it means that there is zero changes in terms of what we as recreational pilots will have to do. It's the same people, Altitude Angel, that run the Drone Assist app, which is the main app for our mapping services here in the UK. So they do ask if we can log our flights if you're anywhere near those test zones. That would help us, but you don't have to do it. And to me, anything that we're able to keep flying, anything we're able to keep the hobby going, and actually just literally being able to just fly and not worry about what's going on around us is wonderful. Because you know, when you look at Wing's presentation, Google's presentation, they want us to be moving out of their way, basically, automatically, which obviously means drones are going to become very expensive, and you know, it's just invasive. I don't like the thought of somebody else, even the computer system, taking control of our drones.
So it's almost like the recreational drone, or the Mini becomes the pedestrian, and the burden is on the vehicle to avoid it.
That's right, exactly. And actually, they ran their test, and they had one helicopter flying across the test area. They had like a test day where they ran it. They had one helicopter run across that was planned, but then a helicopter flew at a lower altitude than it's supposed to be, so it's probably going in for a landing somewhere, straight through the corridor. And on the live test day, it worked perfectly, and it got the test aircraft to move out of its way and then continue their flights.
Wow.
Now, my concern is how that scales. So if it becomes very successful and it covers huge areas, how that scales financially. But that's a whole other debate and question.
Man, we do appreciate you. We appreciate what you do. We appreciate having friends across the pond because, like I said, he went out of his way to come and hang out with me on a day that I was there for vacation. I really, that meant a lot to me, that we got to hang out a little bit. I do hope you get to make it over here. You know,
Yeah, same.
America's
absolutely.
America's an interesting place, and you gotta come
Yeah.
experience. I know you've been here before, but you know, it's-
I have traveled there.
It just
but-
gets
but-
more
but not-
interesting
but not
every
since my
day, don't
drone
you guys
days.
think? So
We don't drive on the wrong side of the road.
true. Well, you know, that's a thing. See, look, you're not made very welcoming. We'll all drive when you're here. We'll drive on the left side, and they can get out of our way. How about that? We'll put the burden on them. So, thank you very much. Wait. Oh, Chris, you just waving goodbye? Okay. Let's all give him a big wave. Thank you, Sean. Geeksvana.